While many believe Africa's greatest resource is still its oil or minerals, Africa is shifting toward a new kind of power, control over its own data. Right now, as you watch this, the continent's secrets, commerce, and even military communications pulse through networks, shaped by decisions made in Washington, Paris, and Beijing. But what if the real power lies not in what's mined from the earth, but in the invisible streams of information flowing beneath the ocean and through the sky? While the world expects Africa to remain a consumer in the global tech race, African nations are building something unexpected, a digital fortress designed to block foreign surveillance and secure their future. Recent reports from the African Union and the United Nations reveal that this battle for data is about more than just technology. It is about sovereignty, security, and the unfinished business of decolonization. Let's start with the question that should unsettle anyone: who controls your nation's secrets if the physical internet cable that carries them lands on a foreign shore, or is monitored by a foreign navy? In today's world, the answer to that question may determine the fate of economies, governments, and entire societies. The fight to build sovereign digital infrastructure is not just a technical upgrade. It is the most critical act of decolonization in the 21st century. To understand why, we need to look beneath the waves and across the deserts to the physical backbone of Africa's internet. Imagine a vast network of fiber-optic cables stretching for thousands of kilometers along the ocean floor. These cables, with names like VAX, Seacom, and 2Africa, are the arteries of Africa's digital life. They carry everything from WhatsApp messages to billion-dollar financial transactions, from government secrets to the hopes of a new generation of entrepreneurs. But here's the vulnerability: if a foreign power controls or even monitors the landing point of one of these cables, they control the off-ramp of a nation's data. It's like having the keys to every safe in the country. This is not a hypothetical risk. According to a 2023 report by the Internet Society, more than 80% of Africa's international internet traffic passes through cables that are either owned, operated, or heavily influenced by foreign companies and governments. The United States and its allies have long dominated the consortia that build and maintain these cables, citing the need for global connectivity and security. Meanwhile, China has rapidly expanded its presence, financing and constructing the hardware that underpins much of Africa's digital infrastructure. Observers note that this new scramble for Africa is not about land or oil, but about the control of information. The stakes are enormous. If a foreign power wanted to destabilize an African election, disrupt a commodities market, or even paralyze a government, the quickest path is through these cables. In 2022, a single cable cut off the coast of West Africa disrupted internet access in multiple countries for days, causing millions in economic losses and exposing just how fragile the system can be. Imagine if that disruption was intentional, timed to coincide with a major election or financial transaction. The consequences would be immediate and severe. But Africa is not standing still. Across the continent, a new generation of policymakers, technologists, and activists is fighting back. Their strategy is clear: build digital sovereignty from the ground up, and ensure that Africa's data is governed by African laws, protected by African infrastructure, and used for African priorities. One of the most powerful tools in this fight is data localization. Simply put, this means that all national user data, whether it's banking records, social media posts, or government communications, must be physically hosted on servers within the country's borders. If your data stays in Lagos or Nairobi, it's primarily governed by Nigerian or Kenyan law, not by the laws of the United States or the European Union. This is a radical shift from the old model, where African data often flowed to servers in Europe or North America, beyond the reach of local regulators. The push for data localization is gaining momentum. In Nigeria, new regulations require that all financial data be stored on local servers. Kenya has passed similar laws for government and health data. South Africa is debating even stricter rules, aiming to keep sensitive information out of foreign hands. Reports from the African Union's Policy and Regulation Initiative for Digital Africa indicate that more than a dozen African countries are now considering or implementing data localization policies, recognizing that control over data is essential for national security and economic development. But data localization is only part of the story. To truly achieve digital sovereignty, Africa needs a unified approach to digital trade and regulation. That's where the African Continental Free Trade Area, or AfCFTA, comes in. The AfCFTA is the world's largest free trade area by number of countries, and its digital ambitions are just as bold. The goal is to create a single African digital market, governed by harmonized data laws and regulatory frameworks. If successful, this would allow African businesses to operate seamlessly across borders, while ensuring that data remains under African control. The logic is simple: digital trade cannot be sovereign if the data is not. If a Nigerian fintech company wants to expand to Ghana or Senegal, it needs to know that its data will be protected by consistent rules. If a Pan-African e-commerce platform wants to compete with global giants, it needs access to reliable, secure, and locally governed data infrastructure. The African Union and regional organizations are working to make this vision a reality, but the path is complex. Different countries have different priorities, legal systems, and levels of technical capacity. Bridging these gaps is one of the defining challenges of Africa's digital future. Let's look at a few examples that illustrate both the promise and the complexity of this transformation. In Rwanda, the government has invested heavily in building a national data center, aiming to keep citizen data within its borders and under local control. The Rwandan model is often cited by the World Bank as a regional success, combining robust cybersecurity measures with a legal framework that prioritizes privacy and innovation. In contrast, Ghana has faced challenges in enforcing data localization due to limited infrastructure and the high cost of building secure data centers. As a result, much of Ghana's digital traffic still relies on foreign-owned servers, exposing it to the very vulnerabilities that data localization seeks to address. These contrasting experiences highlight a central tension: the need for massive investment and technical expertise. According to the African Development Bank, the continent faces a digital infrastructure financing gap of more than $100 billion. Bridging this gap requires not only public investment, but also private sector involvement and international partnerships that respect African agency. As we follow the story from the seabed to the server room, another front in this war for data is opening high above the earth. In the past, Africa's connectivity depended almost entirely on foreign-owned cables and satellites. But today, African nations are launching their own satellites, building their own ground stations, and even planning for a continental space agency. Take Nigeria, for example. The country has launched multiple satellites, including communication and Earth observation platforms, designed to provide independent connectivity and critical data for agriculture, disaster response, and national security. Egypt and South Africa have made similar investments, with ambitious plans for satellite constellations that can provide broadband coverage to even the most remote regions. The African Union has established the African Space Agency, or AfCFTA, to coordinate these efforts and ensure that space technology serves African interests. Why does this matter? Because satellites provide crucial redundancy. If a subsea cable is cut, whether by accident or design, satellites can keep military, financial, and governmental communications flowing. They are a backup system, owned and operated by Africans, for Africans. This is not just about prestige or technological showmanship. It's about ensuring that the continent's most sensitive data is never again at the mercy of foreign powers. Observers note that the race for digital sovereignty is also a race for economic opportunity. The global digital economy is worth trillions of dollars, and Africa's share is growing fast. E-commerce, fintech, digital health, and online education are transforming lives and creating new markets. But without secure, locally governed infrastructure, these gains are at risk. Foreign surveillance, data theft, and cyber attacks are real threats, with the potential to undermine trust and stall progress. At this point, it's worth pausing to reflect on the scale of what's at stake. If you're finding this story as urgent as we do, consider sharing it so that more people can join the conversation. We cannot continue to explore these critical issues without your support. Like, share, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience and keep this dialogue alive. Returning to the heart of the matter, the struggle for digital sovereignty is not just a technical or economic issue. It is deeply political, rooted in the long history of colonialism and the ongoing quest for self-determination. For centuries, Africa's resources were extracted and controlled by foreign powers. Today, the resource is data and the extraction is digital. But the response is different. African leaders and institutions are asserting their right to control their own digital destiny. This assertion takes many forms. In some countries, it means building national data centers, staffed by local engineers and protected by local laws. In others, it means investing in cybersecurity, training a new generation of experts to defend against foreign and domestic threats. Across the continent, it means forging alliances, both within Africa and with partners who respect African agency and priorities. Yet, the challenges are immense. Building secure, resilient digital infrastructure requires massive investment, technical expertise, and political will. Many African countries still rely on foreign technology and financing, creating potential vulnerabilities. The global tech giants, companies like Google, Facebook, and Huawei, have deep pockets and powerful incentives to shape the rules in their favor. Balancing the need for investment with the imperative of sovereignty is a delicate dance. Recent data shows that Africa's internet penetration is rising rapidly, with more than 500 million people now online. This digital revolution is creating new opportunities for education, entrepreneurship, and civic engagement. But it also raises new questions about privacy, surveillance, and control. Who owns the data generated by Africa's youth? Who decides how it is used, and for whose benefit? To answer these questions, African governments are turning to regional cooperation and legal innovation. The African Union's Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection, adopted in 2014, sets out a framework for protecting personal data and promoting digital rights. While implementation has been uneven, the convention represents a significant step toward a continental approach to digital governance. At the same time, the AfCFTA is working to harmonize digital trade rules, making it easier for African businesses to operate across borders. This includes efforts to standardize data protection laws, promote cross-border e-commerce, and build shared digital infrastructure. The goal is to create a single African digital market, where data flows freely but securely, under African control. But the path is not without obstacles. Some countries are moving faster than others, creating a patchwork of laws and regulations. There are debates over how much control governments should have over data, and concerns about the potential for abuse. Civil society groups are pushing for stronger protections for privacy and freedom of expression, warning that the quest for security must not come at the expense of human rights. Observers note that the tension between security and openness is not unique to Africa. Around the world, countries are grappling with the same issues, balancing the need to protect their citizens with the imperative to foster innovation and growth. What makes Africa's situation unique is the legacy of colonialism and the urgent need to build institutions that reflect African values and priorities. To deepen our understanding, let's explore the broader geopolitical context. The competition for Africa's digital future is not just between African governments and foreign companies. It is also a contest among global powers, each seeking to shape the rules of the digital age. The United States, China, the European Union, and even Russia are all investing in African digital infrastructure, each with their own strategic interests. According to a 2022 Chatham House analysis, China's Digital Silk Road Initiative has funded more than 50 major ICT projects across Africa, from fiber-optic cables to smart cities. The United States, through the Power Africa and Prosper Africa initiatives, has supported investments in data centers and cybersecurity. The European Union, meanwhile, is pushing for regulatory alignment and digital partnerships, aiming to extend its influence over African data governance. This competition creates both risks and opportunities. On one hand, it can provide much-needed investment and technology transfer. On the other, it can entrench new forms of dependency, as African countries become locked into proprietary systems or geopolitical alliances that limit their freedom of action. As Professor Nanjira Sambilai, a Kenyan digital policy expert, notes, the real challenge is not just building infrastructure, but ensuring that Africa retains the power to set its own rules. Let's take a closer look at the role of regional organizations. The African Union has emerged as a key player in shaping the continent's digital agenda. Through initiatives like the Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa, the AU is working to coordinate policy, mobilize investment, and promote best practices. The African Union's specialized agencies, such as the African Telecommunications Union and the African Space Agency, are driving efforts to build capacity and foster innovation. At the same time, regional economic communities like ECOWAS, SADC, and the East African Community are developing their own digital strategies, tailored to the needs and priorities of their member states. The AfCFTA stands out as a potential game changer. By creating a single market for goods, services, and data, the AfCFTA could unlock enormous economic potential. According to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the AfCFTA could boost intra-African trade by more than 50% and create millions of new jobs. But realizing this vision requires more than just signing agreements. It demands investment in infrastructure, harmonization of laws, and the political will to overcome national rivalries. One underreported angle is the rise of African tech hubs and innovation ecosystems. Cities like Lagos, Nairobi, and Cape Town are home to vibrant startup communities, driving innovation in fintech, e-commerce, and digital health. These hubs are not just consumers of technology, but creators, developing homegrown solutions to African challenges. For example, Kenya's M-Pesa mobile money platform has revolutionized financial inclusion, inspiring similar initiatives across the continent. In Senegal, the government's Smart Senegal program is investing in digital skills and infrastructure, aiming to position the country as a regional leader in the digital economy. Yet, these successes also highlight the risks of fragmentation. Without a unified digital market, African startups face barriers to scaling across borders. Differences in data protection laws, payment systems, and regulatory requirements can stifle innovation and limit growth. That's why the push for harmonization under the AfCFTA is so critical. Let's not overlook the importance of cybersecurity. As Africa's digital footprint grows, so does its exposure to cyber threats. According to Interpol's 2023 Africa Cyber Threat Assessment Report, the continent faces a rising tide of cybercrime, from ransomware attacks to data breaches. Governments are responding by investing in national cybersecurity agencies, training experts, and joining international efforts to combat cybercrime. But the challenge is immense. Many countries lack the resources and expertise to defend against sophisticated attacks, and the rapid pace of digitalization can outstrip the capacity of regulators. In this context, partnerships matter. African governments are increasingly working with international organizations, private companies, and civil society to build resilience. The African Union's partnership with the International Telecommunication Union, for example, is helping to develop cybersecurity frameworks and share best practices. At the same time, there is a growing recognition that solutions must be tailored to African realities, not imported wholesale from abroad. As we look to the future, the stakes could not be higher. The war for data is not just about who builds the cables or launches the satellites. It is about who sets the rules, who benefits from the digital economy, and who controls the levers of power in the information age. For Africa, the answer to these questions will shape the continent's economic rise, political stability, and place in the global order. So what does victory look like in this war for data? It means owning the entire digital supply chain, from the fiber in the sea to the server in the capital city. It means building resilient, secure infrastructure that serves African needs and priorities. It means creating a legal and regulatory environment that protects privacy, promotes innovation, and ensures that the benefits of the digital revolution are shared by all. It also means forging new partnerships, both within Africa and with the wider world. The continent's digital future will be shaped not just by governments, but by businesses, civil society, and ordinary citizens. Everyone has a role to play in building a digital Africa that is open, inclusive, and sovereign. In the end, the control of information is the control of destiny. Africa's leaders and people are making bold choices, investing in infrastructure, and crafting laws that will determine the continent's future. But the challenges are real and the outcome is not yet certain. So we leave you with this question: which is Africa's greatest digital threat today, foreign-owned cables, or the failure to unify data laws across the continent? Share your analysis below, and join the conversation about the future of Africa in the digital age.